Ready? Good afternoon. When this COVID crisis began, we knew the only way we would have to fight in the first battle against this virus was to essentially prevent us gathering. We knew this would be a challenging time. We knew that we would all have to find new creative ways to go about our lives so that we could jointly attempt to corral and suppress this deadly virus. And we know that in Washingtonian, many Washingtonians, their way is the way of the Spirit. We know that people treasure religious gatherings. So this has been a difficult issue about how we simultaneously defeat this virus and maintain our congregations. And as I've said before, this crisis may affect our physical connections, but we should not allow it to stop our emotional connections. And that is one reason why we deliberately made our prohibitions in this area flexible as to meet the needs of different organizations. So I'm pleased today to announce that we will be able to ease some of the restrictions on religious gatherings in a safe way as our state continues on this journey forward. During this time, in the last couple of months, it has been very heartening to see religious congregations find ways to remain emotionally connected through electronics and otherwise. It's also been really inspiring to see many of these organizations be very active in helping their neighbors, not just those that are in their congregations. But today I'm pleased to be able to announce new additional guidance for religious groups, both in Phase 1 and Phase 2 of our plan to reopen Washington. I'm joined today by three religious leaders who will have some comments. They're Anila Afsali, he's Executive Director of the American Muslim Empowerment Network of Puget Sound, Rabbi Yosef Shrox of the Chabad Jewish Center of Olympia, and Bishop Shelley Bryan Wee of the Northwest Washington Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Now, we're going to announce some measures, but I do want to encourage people, if they can continue their creative ways of congregating that have been successful for them already, that would be great. So here's what our new guidance would state. For in-person services, the following activities with the appropriate health guidance can be safe to begin with. First, in Phase 1, and essentially this would be allowed throughout the state of Washington right now. So right now in Phase 1, outdoor religious services can be held on the organization's property or immediately adjacent, up to 100 individuals using face coverings. And congregations will be able to do this multiple times during the day. For areas of the state that are now in Phase 2, and that is increasing, indoor religious services will be held at 25% capacity of the facility or 50 individuals, whichever is less, again with face coverings. And again, that can be held multiple times during the day. Also, for those counties that are currently in Phase 2, in-home services or counseling at a person's residence with 5 total individuals or less are now going to go forward. And if these gatherings include people from outside one's household, everyone involved should wear face coverings. Now, these numbers exclude staff, not volunteers, needed to run the service. There are some broad aspects of this. Well, the religious services covered in these new guidance include all worship services, religious study classes, religious ceremonies, religious holiday celebrations, weddings, and funerals. This also means there's no limit, as I've said, on the number of these events that could be held throughout the day. Now, there are certain parts of our services we'll need to defer for the moment, including some choirs. Singing in the congregation is allowed, but with face coverings. And this is because the science has been pretty clear on this, that this virus is transmitted, of course, through our exhalations. And the louder we project our voices, the farther this virus travels. So we're also encouraging congregations to see if they can maintain a voluntary log of attendees at these services and try to retain it for a couple of weeks. This is volunteer for the folks who want to volunteer their information. And the reason for that is if an outbreak occurs, and we have seen this unfortunately in our churches, certainly we saw it in Skagit County, this information can be really critical to help these congregates get knowledge about their potential exposure so that they can protect themselves and their families as soon as possible. We think that makes sense because I think it's common to the texts of all faiths that we have an obligation to care for one another. We know that we have seen a lot of creativity. We know that will continue, and we have found ways for organizations that can meet the safe way of meeting, and we appreciate the things that have been going on already. Now, there are some things that make common sense and follow the science right now that we're asking folks to abide with. First, of course, we need physical distancing, and that means that we really need a full 6 feet between pews and between seats in all directions, or where people stand, and they need to be identified by markings to help people really understand the distance we need to keep for each other during the services, and of course we need to wear face coverings. We need to make sure that employees are educated about COVID-19 and how to prevent transmission. And that includes teaching employees how to self-screen for symptoms so that people don't come in as an employee of the church and unwittingly spread this virus. Organizations will need to cordon off, clean, and disinfect areas where someone who has had potentially COVID-19 has been positive have been. And there are some good CDC guidelines about how to go about that. We also need organizations to provide the personal protective of equipment for their employees and ensure hand washing and frequent house cleaning to sanitize facilities. Soap and running water works with all faiths, I'm told. So there are additional details in the guidance we're releasing today, but that's a quick run through. And now I'd like to turn to some comments to Anila, Joseph, and Shelley. And let's see, would that Anila start our comments? Are we starting with Anila? Yes. Anila, thank you for joining us, and thanks for your help with the broader community. We've had many discussions, and we appreciate our discussions with all the faith communities.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Governor Inslee, for your leadership. And assalamu alaikum, peace be upon everybody. My name is Anila Afzali, and I'm with the Muslim Association of Puget Sound, or MAPS, and also on the Faith Action Network board. Based in Redmond, MAPS is the largest Islamic center in Washington, serving over 5,000 families across Puget Sound. The Muslim community recently completed the beautiful month of Ramadan. We celebrated Eid. Our mosques are usually bustling with activity during these times, with people praying, breaking fast together, and celebrating. This year, of course, was very different. We missed out on so much of the communal aspects of these blessed days, even though we did what we could with the restrictions. MAPS was the first mosque in the nation to make the difficult decision to cancel our Friday services. And we did so recognizing that we don't worship our places of worship. We worship God, and we are commanded to preserve life and uphold community well-being. The Quran states that if anyone saves a life, it shall be as though they saved all of humanity. And of course, there is a strong desire among Muslims to return to our mosques. Our hearts are longing for that. But we want to do so in a safe way without sacrificing the most vulnerable. So we welcome the new guidelines today as a step in that direction. And we look forward to continuing work with the governor's office and county officials to preserve human life and health as we find ways to safely reopen our places of worship. We cannot wait to be in phases 2, 3, and 4, inshallah, God willing. But in the meantime, because our faith values also manifest in service, we continue helping our neighbors in need. Like other mosques and Muslim relief organizations, MAPS, through our MCRC program, has been providing crisis relief, including distributing over 85,000 pounds of food to the hungry, providing over 125,000 in rent and utility help, free virtual medical services, and more. And we will continue to do that. We stand ready and committed to do our part to support safety for all and serve the greater good. We are also contemplating how to emerge from this crisis in a way that ensures a new, better reality for everybody, because normal was not okay for so many people. And with that recognition, I send prayers to some of the most vulnerable right now, including those in prison or detention, those who lost their income, those who are not covered by relief packages, the frontline essential workers, and those directly infected with COVID, as well as, of course, the governor and his team and other leaders as they navigate us out of this crisis. May faith, wisdom, and heart guide us all through this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anila. Yosef.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Governor Inslee. Thank you, Anila. Thank you, Governor Inslee, for your bold leadership throughout this entire ordeal, being so dedicated to the preservation of life and sparing no efforts to keep all Washingtonians safe and healthy. You know, one of the things that this pandemic has brought to the forefront is the inherent and equal importance of every individual. The Torah, the Bible, teaches that when God created the world, all other species, animals, plants, etc., were created in herds by the hundreds and thousands, but the human was the only one that was created alone. And that teaches us that every person is like an entire world. And as the great spiritual leader, the Lubavitcher Rebbe of saintly memory, once explained, that within each individual stands the entirety of the community, because the community is only complete when it is constituted by all its individuals, each with their own unique qualities, abilities, and contributions. And in the giant community that is our great state of Washington, as we faced a crisis, it was inspiring to see, especially under your leadership, Governor Inslee, how we all went to great lengths, closing our businesses, schools, and even houses of worship in order to save the lives of individuals. We may not know them personally, irrespective of who they are, because after all, we each share a divine spark. Every person in our great state is an entire world. My wife Rivka and I are blessed to co-direct the Chabad Jewish Center in the Olympia area, and we serve as the representatives of Chabad Lubavitch here in the state capitol. And your announcement today brings us great joy, as it is indicative that hopefully the worst is behind us, and it will enable our community to resume many of the core communal rituals that are central to our faith, and will enable us to draw good energies from one another, help us heal together, while still maintaining utmost care to ensure everyone's health and safety. And I imagine the news will similarly be received with great happiness by our sister communities around the state, especially with the timing of today's proclamation being just a few short days ahead of the major Jewish holiday of Shavuot. On Shavuot, we relive the giving of the Torah, the Bible, on Mount Sinai 3,332 years ago, through an annual public communal reading of the Ten Commandments. Now, of course, that couldn't have been possible this year without the decision you shared today. We plan in our congregation to go a little further than the framework you set in place today, and to add a few extra precautions, to be extra cautious, and my colleagues at Jewish communities across the state tell me that they will be doing the same based on their unique local needs and concerns. But at the same time, we remain steadfast in our commitment to be there in any way we can for the homebound and most vulnerable among us who are weathering this prolonged and challenging isolation, because although we may be physically separated, we are united as a community. I'm deeply grateful to you, Governor Inslee, and your entire team, those I interacted with, Rochelle Davis, Dante Payne, and I'm sure so many others who invested so much effort towards enabling a safe reopening of spiritual services. And may God bless you, Governor, with endless strength as you lead the battalions of elected leaders, public servants, frontline healthcare providers, first responders, and essential workers in the fight against the coronavirus. And may God bless this great state of Washington and all of its residents with health, life, and prosperity. Amen.
Thank you, Yosef. Before Shelley speaks, you just made me think of something I want to say, and that is that one of the great things about what the faith communities are doing here by acting safely, obviously they are protecting their own flock, their own congregation, the people who are in the faith facility with them, but they're protecting everybody outside of multiple faiths. You know, when a person in the Hebrew faith wears a mask that prevents the transmission from going out, that then ends up infecting a Catholic or a Muslim or any other faith, this is all truly an all faiths issue, because everything we do in the church is protecting everyone else of whatever faith or without faith, without the broader community. And that's why I appreciate the responsibility that has been shown by so many people in the faith communities. With that, Shelley.
Thank you. God's peace be with you. Like so many faith communities, we in the Christian church yearn to be back together again. As a pastor and as a bishop, my calling has been to gather faithful people and share the message of Jesus Christ. I did not accept God's call to ministry in order to tell people to not enter church buildings. But this is a strange time. As one of 3 Lutheran bishops in the state of Washington, serving in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, partnering with over 300 congregations, we continue to wrestle with how we are the church in the world today. You see, as Christians, care of neighbor is what frames our daily walk with Jesus. As leaders, in order to uphold the sanctity of life and protect the most vulnerable, we need to take into account that what is safe in one part of Washington is not safe in other parts. We have to hold in tension liberty and safety. Governor Inslee, I thank you so much for your careful work in establishing guidelines. And I know this has been difficult for you with the many voices you have been hearing. I think that what you are recommending holds the desire to gather and to be safe well. I would caution that as these guidelines are followed, we need to be mindful of the numbers of cases of COVID in the part of the state that we are in, the ages of the people who are worshiping, and the best practices established by the scientific community so that our worshiping communities do not spread this virus further. In the northwest part of Washington where I serve, which includes the most cases of COVID deaths in the state, I will prayerfully continue to encourage online worship, and I will patiently wait with expectation and anticipation for the day we can all gather safely in person again, when all can gather, from the most healthy to the most vulnerable, and we fill church buildings to overflowing again. I faithfully believe this is true. I strongly encourage that as people begin to gather again using the governor's guidelines, that good protocols are in place so that all are protected. As Christians, we're committed to following Jesus Christ, loving our neighbor, and we continue to be informed by the scientific community. Remember, my Christian sisters and brothers, we are being the church now. We are worshiping now. We are loving our neighbor now. We are the body of Christ now. We are being church in the world now. And God's Spirit is here. May all that we say and do reflect the love of Jesus Christ. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I should note that this guidance followed many conversations with multiple congregations in the faith community, and I found a commonality in the discussions with them because regardless of their faith, they all share a commitment to their fellow people in the state of Washington, which we appreciate. So with that, happy to stand for some questions. Oh, yes. No, I think there's a few more things the state needs to know about before we stand for questions. First off, I just want to make sure people knew that our Department of Health has approved 7 more counties to move forward to phase 2. This morning, that was added to that group, Thurston, Walla Walla, and Kittitas. That means that 24 counties have been able to transition to phase 2 in our 4-part Safe Start recovery plan. Clallam, Kitsap, and Klickitat are eligible to apply. They have not applied for a step forward. We think that may be forthcoming. The variance application for Clark County remains on a pause for further discussion because they've had an ongoing outbreak investigation that we are in the middle of taking a look at that county. We hope things are able to improve. We remain hard at work determining our next steps forward as a state on June 1. We're going to have more details to share with you in the days to come. But I do, as we've been clear now for some period of time, we do not believe that every county will be able to move forward at phase 2 on that particular date. We'll have more to say about this in the next few days. We know we've made tremendous progress in our state. We've remained united, and I look forward to continue to be united in this step forward in our state's onward quest.